About that action with your man Sean Zittel and my guy Radio Raheem, joined by former kickboxing champion, manager of Mike Tyson, manager of Nico Ali Walsh, and the lead promoter of MF Pro, our guy Amir Abdallah, and of course middleweight fighter, the grandson of Muhammad Ali, who took place in the House hearings earlier this year in Washington, D.C., who was on Zuffa Boxing 9 last night in New York City, our guy Nico Ali Walsh. What's up, fellas? I gotta give an opener here to kick us off, okay? So last night with Nico taking the picture alongside you, Amir, and Nick Khan, I tweeted, I've known Nico and Amir for some years, and I respect both of them, but you see the play here. TKO has been taking longer than expected to change legislation, and this is the time to co-opt Ali's name into amending it and passing it through. So let me explain myself so that Nico doesn't just want to hit me with the overhand right that he's knocked out
No,
eight
no,
guys.
no, no, no.
Real quick. So
Go ahead.
the reason why I said that was I even went on before I even saw your interview, Nico, where you went on to say you believe TKO knows they're not going to be able to pass the current Revival Act in its current form, right?
Yep.
And as of right now, under the current legislation, the one that was enacted when your grandfather was here, it was under that current legislation, TKO has been paying, to their credit, guys like Andreas Cortez, Julian Rodriguez, who were former stablemates of yours during your time at Top Rank. They've gotten career high paydays at Zuffa. Conor Benn, Shakur Stevenson getting career high money at Zuffa. They are in the midst of promoting in September a cross-promotion, cross-platform fight with DAZN and Golden Boy, doing Ryan Garcia and Conor Benn. They are recognizing a world title, maybe not calling the sanctioning bodies by their name, but they're recognizing it as a world championship fight. Next month, between the Irish kid Aaron McKenna and Edinosa, the Italian fighter, they are doing an IBF world title fight. So if that's the case, what I'm getting at is under the current legislation, they're already doing cross-promotional fights. Fighters are making career-high money. And on another note, I ask you this, I get at this because their network partner, Paramount, right now is getting their merger with Warner Brothers Discovery blockaded, where it's going to have to wait until the middle of next year to resume trying to do that merger. A microcosm of that merger is taking place in boxing. Right now, TNT, which just got into the fight game, doing fights with DAZN, they are under the Warner Brothers Discovery umbrella. And so they are, for now, in this current legislation and in this current media climate, competing with, you could say, Paramount Zuffa. But if that merger were to go through, it would be, and it's being held up because of antitrust, anti-competitive concerns. If that merger goes through, then what you have is no more competition. All those companies would be under the same umbrella. And as I said last September, as you know, Nico, as you know, Amir, the TKO has been sued for anti-competitive practices by the hundreds of millions, with more to continue. So between their network partner being engaged in what is being looked at as an anti-competitive practice, trying to acquire Warner Brothers, between that company already being sued for anti-competitive practices, why not have a stance of just don't pass it at all? Under this current legislation, fighters under their umbrella are getting career high money. Cross-promotional deals are happening. Their financier already has a lineal title under his grasp in Turkey with the ring belt. Why not take the stance of, hey, just leave the act alone at all? Because if you believe that it's not going to get amended in its current form, then why risk having your good intentions co-opted into it eventually passing through the Senate, with your cosign, with both you and Amir's cosign? Why not just take the stance, hey, you guys already got $100 million a year from Paramount. You're already making big fights. You're not holding up with side of the street talk. Why do you need to change this legislation at all, especially when your network partner has anti-competitive practices blockading a merger, and you've already been sued for anti-competitive practices? And then even on a deeper sense, too, changing legislation on behalf of a foreign-backed entity. You know, when Saudi owns 60%, that government is given presents and gifts like planes to the president. And now the U.S. is enacting a uranium deal, which is going to give them nuclear capabilities. The Ellisons are huge funders of Israel, and they back Paramount. This just seems like it's a microcosm of even much more deeper geopolitical ties and concerns with the United States. And I'm sorry for being so long-winded, fellas, but I just wanted to lay that out on the table to get us started. Why not just take the chance? Yeah.
You allow me to begin. 4 things. 5. 1, is that all one question? 2.
It's more of an opening statement. Raheem said, "Don't frame it as a question." So, but I felt. Go ahead.
2, respectfully, Mike Tyson, global representative. I wish I was just his manager. Just a global representative. 3, Nico, you look like a Minecraft character. Like you got like some kind of potato that you're on, bro. Connect to the Wi-Fi.
Thankfully, on Riverside, it all comes through.
Is my connection not looking good?
To me, he looks pixelated.
Well, the beauty of Riverside, which we'll see in the watermark.
It's not enough that they have a watermark on us. Yeah.
Is that for somehow this app really makes, even when somebody's Wi-Fi is not great, in the post, it cleans it up. So even if he freezes,
Amer, it might be you because everyone looks clear.
Really?
No, it's definitely you. But nobody panic because as long as we can hear him in the post, we'll be able to see him clearly. Okay. And Amer, I think you got a 4th. Yeah.
I love your shirt. Represent Kronk, baby.
That's right. That's not a coincidence, Amer. We love you. I love the Kronk legacy. We know that there's there's an American tradition around boxing, and that's what we're talking about today. So
are you in the UK?
A shout out to somebody who has resurrected and preserved one of the great American brands in boxing.
My guy, we have a great team. Okay, so start this thing off. Let's jump
right. Wait, Amer, I gotta jump in because to be fair, it was a long opening statement, but the first question was buried in there, and it was directed at Nico. So we like for Nico to answer, and I think if I can paraphrase for Sean, the question is, with all that he said, why allow your name and opposition basically to be co-opted or to appear to be co-opted to help pass something that may not pass at all? So basically, why give them a lifeline?
So the biggest thing is when we're speaking with Ted Cruz's office and all the Senate officials and all those people in the government, they're not saying that the Revival Act is not going to pass at all. They're saying it's going to pass, but it's not going to pass the way it is. So what me and Amer and my team have been doing is we've been trying to add stuff to the act that will eventually pass that would better benefit us fighters. So I mean, not everything in the Revival Act is bad, right? Like they've got some really good health benefits, for example. That's a good thing that we'd be able to add. But the biggest things that we want to make sure is in this law that they eventually pass is financial transparency, just fighter pay in general, the contract lengths. There's a list of things that we're talking to the senators about, but adding that to the law would just make it better. I mean, keeping it the way it is, obviously, ideally, that's the perfect world, right? But it's going to pass in some form, and we gotta make sure that the form it passes in benefits us, the fighters.
To piggyback on that, Nico, I think that was a very suitable answer to the question. But let me piggyback on top of your question. How much insight do you have on the progress or the status of the Revival Act?
You asking me?
No, either Sean or Ray.
Oh. Well, we just know through the House of Commerce it passed 30-4 back in March, I believe it was.
That's old news.
But it's more so hearing from people around USA Boxing who withdrew their support when they originally had it, and they had a big controversy and shakeup at the top of their leadership. But
what insight do you have on the statement or the question that you said, which is posed? And again, look, we're on the same side here, right? But for the sake of the conversation, you posed a question of Why not just leave it alone? It's going to die alone. What insight do you have that it's going to die?
Well, just hearing from people and sources around USA Boxing that
we talked to the senators. We've talked to almost 20 senators. I've put everything else that I'm doing on the side and have allocated a team and my time to be able to get senators and their representatives to have phone calls since that Senate hearing that Oscar and Nico went to defend boxing and the old Muhammad Ali bill. So we're very in tune with what's happening on a daily basis. Not what I heard from such and such and I heard from so and so and these guys. No, we're hearing from the source. This bill, there will be a new revision that'll be put in this week. The Senate has put a separate committee that's headed by Senator Cruz with several other key senators. But I'll say this to you. None of them understand the business of boxing, Sean and Raheem, and for everybody that's watching. They don't understand what boxing is from a business perspective. So when certain elements are proposed to them and they're saying, oh, by the way, we're going to fix this and fix this because there's a problem with this and a problem with that. Okay, that sounds great, but boxing already has a remedy to a lot of those things. And if you want to get specific, I'm more than happy to. I don't know how much time we have. But let me just give you an overview of it. So we put, through our calls, through our initiatives, as a team, we're able to have the Senate take a look at this and say, no, we can't approve what the House did because the House doesn't understand it. But now the Senate, because they allowed a public hearing, understand that there is a pushback, and the pushback is factual information that's coming out and rebutting and refuting a lot of the claims that they're making. So with that, the answer was, no, we're not passing it the way the House did. Stop. Give us a new revision. What we've done is we've come up with our resolution of what we want to propose and what we want to see if this thing wants to go forward. Mind you, do we love the UBO? Do we not love the UBO? I think that's subjective. I think what we have to focus on is where are these guys headed in? What you have to understand from a context perspective is this is a $40 billion entity that's backed with almost an $8 billion network deal. And Sean, even about what you said, which is factual information, it's still backed by that and a surplus of funding that they have in the back end to try to push this thing through. So anybody that thinks this thing is just going to die on a vine, why resurrect it? You don't know the daily fights that we're having. Every single week we have multiple calls with senators' offices about new provisions that they're putting in, amendments, edits, pushing back, changes on this. So when TKO saw that, listen, this thing got halted and now we have to put a new rendering of this in because they're not accepting it as is, then let's reach out and have a conversation. But let me throw this back to you, the media, right?
Well, can I jump in, Amer, real quick?
Yeah,
because yes, that question to Sean, good question. I think you're right in that. Based on what Sean said, I certainly am not having any conversations with senators, or this is not a story I'm dug into. But what is evident about American politics in general, right? And I'm specifically not speaking to senators about this legislation, but what we're looking at the landscape is we're coming up on a midterm election. I don't know how high a priority the UBO Muhammad Ali revisions are for the Senate and the House. We know that there's going to be a very contentious fight in the House, and if they're not right now able to smoothly pass this through Congress, then that means that just like there's a hurdle to this network deal that was unforeseen a few months ago, this thing was supposed to be a done deal and over with, right? So do the representatives in the House and then also subsequently in the Senate want to be fighting over, Dana White's TKO UBO deal right now? Is this what they want to be on the House floor arguing about?
That's exactly
and so getting something out of committee, then getting it passed in the House, then getting it passed in the Senate without revisions, otherwise they have to send it back to the House. All of that takes legislative maneuvering and agenda positioning, and these guys can't pass a ham sandwich. So the idea is that if you don't give them the credibility of your name and your participation, then let them get to the point where they get through all that other stuff and then need that last vote, need that final revision, and if they get to that stage and it's not, and it doesn't seem to be stoppable, then you voice your objections and say these are the elements that we need put in the bill before we can support anything. But it seems right now that it's still early days legislatively, and to co-opt your approval now is just to get you out of the way.
I wish it was that way. What I'm telling you is they're pushing for this because exactly what you're saying. Midterms are coming up. There is a lot more that I can say about the political landscape. I'm going to refrain from it at this stage. But I will tell you, don't think that they're not wise enough to understand from all the groups that they've hired, all of their experts. And by the way, it's just us fighting this thing and going against this thing. Don't think they are not very well aware of what the midterms could mean for the House and the Senate. Don't think that they're not, they're not versed enough to understand what this means for this bill also, which is pushed from the top. But, and by the way, that Senate goes into recess, by the way, in a couple of weeks. That's why they're pushing this now. No, you're remiss, and again, it's naive to say, just wait until they come. No, they're going to come forward, and because they have a political agenda and they have a political push, they could say, yes, this new revision that they rescinded certain things on, we're going to push through. We can't do that. We have to say, no, we're going to talk to you about certain things that we want. If you just lay low, this is going to get passed without you even knowing it. There's not going to be another public voting. It won't be that way. It'll be, and it could go back to the floor where it's, and this is one of the things that a tactic that they use is they tuck it under a different bill and it just rides through and it gets a secondary vote on it and all of a sudden goes through. And these are things that I'm learning. I'm not a politician. I've never liked politics, but these are things that we're learning based on this stuff. So it's easy to say, man, just let it die down. When I see these comments, and I'm just shaking my head like nobody's advocating that, hey, Nico, great job, man. Hey, man, I know you've been taking 8 months out of your career to fight on this thing and not have a fight, which is critical for a 25-year-old in the middle of his career. Nobody's advocating that. But when we step forward and now we're trying to fix this to make it better for boxing, everybody has a voice to say, oh, man, why are you meeting with him? Oh, this looks bad. What looks bad? What looks bad is that we're trying to fight for what we've started fighting single-handedly on our own. Where was the support back then? Where are the media outlets covering this stuff without getting too deep into that rabbit hole? And you know exactly what I'm talking about. Where are the big media outlets that are covering this and advocating for boxing because you love boxing so much? You know what? Where are the other promoters coming forward and saying, hey, Nico, we know you haven't fought, man. Here's a slot on our card. Keep going. Keep fighting a good fight. Where are they?
Yeah, well, I would
Let me
say
ask you
that
as the media that question.
the reason that you're and I am sitting here today is because of the one guy who can answer that question and say me. He brought me along into the fight. This wouldn't have necessarily been my fight either. So Sean Zittel is the answer to that question.
Yeah, and more what I want to get at from afar, and you're right, I'm not talking to senators and whatnot, but as I follow that Paramount-Warner merger being held up until 2027, that's got even more financial backing and implication and probably lobbying power and opposition, to be fair. To like, it's got more than Nico Ali, Oscar De La Hoya, and yourself, Amer, fighting it in opposition as well, for sure. But
it's
at the
first Goliath fight.
It is, but from afar, what it seems like too is, if that can be held up, and like Raheem's saying, and again, for full disclosure to the audience, I don't vote Republican or Democrat. I'm very disenchanted, like tens of millions of other Americans, with the American political process. But that being said, I know enough to know if the midterms come around and things like the Senate flip and it becomes, swings more to the Democrats' way, that should, in theory, make it more difficult for TKO, which has a great standing, and the Republican president right now actually owns stock in TKO. If they lose some foothold in there, then it becomes harder for them to change and pass through what they want to pass through legislation. And just looking from afar, it's like if they had it in the bag, they wouldn't have Nico on. These people are smart politicians and manipulators, as you know, Amer and Nico. And what I see from it was let's have Nico on because we're running into a lot more hurdles, and this is taking a lot longer than we thought it was going to take to pass through. So let's bring Nico on and give him let's give him some amendments so that we can still get what we need to get done here. Ultimately, it's not really having him on, and if they had it in the bag, they wouldn't even need to waste their time doing that.
Well, and that's exactly my point, brother. Before I lose my train of thought,
go ahead.
I have ADD and I'm going to lose it. Two things. Exactly what you're saying. Number one, we did stall it. They did think they had it in the bag. Had we not refuted the points that they made, and I think I sent you those points that Mr. Khan, Nick had made in the meeting, and then the actual factual basis on what we stood on, if we didn't send that, they wouldn't have had a light bulb go off and say, wait a second, there is opposition to this. Maybe we shouldn't do what the House did. Maybe there should be a second look at this. So we did stall it. So you can't say that, they had, this arrogance of, or the self-belief that this is going to pass through. They did have that because they had it go in the House that way. So yes, they did have it, and we did stop it. And in return for that, he's in the position that he is now, 8 months of inactivity, which is fine, and we'll go 8 more months of inactivity to keep fighting for what he believes in. And yes, has he dragged me into this with him? He absolutely has. But I told my friends who work at TKO and who work at Zuffa, just so you know, I'm backing my guy. I'm telling you, I'm going down this, we're going to go to the weddings together, we're going to go to the funerals together. And that's where we're at. But secondly, Sean, you're saying that they used Nico as, and I've seen the billboard, advertisement, all of that. How do you think it looks when they go back to the Senate and they say, listen, the biggest contributor to boxing and the biggest advocate for the old Ali Act was Muhammad Ali, and the biggest voice against what we're doing, it was Nico Ali Walsh. That was the biggest adversary to our bill. And by the way, we invited him for a sit down and he didn't come.
Right. Well, but they're smart enough to try to turn a negative into a positive.
Why? They gave us
that opposition into a cosign,
which we requested. We put a microphone on Nico without any kind of agreement, and to their credit, they didn't say 1, 2, 3. I said, if Nico comes, we're more than happy to come. We're going to come support the fight. By the way, we were at the fight for maybe a half hour. We didn't get even a chance to see Hitchens and Berlanga fight. I think we left the second round after Hitchens. We met with Nick Khan. We didn't meet with any Zuffa guys. And Nico said what he said on TV on their broadcast. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'm not here for Zuffa. I want to be very clear about that. When they reached out to us, Sean, if it was, and this is what's so infuriating about our boxing fans, if I wanted just to have a sneak meeting, I would have had it in Vegas. I would have had it on the West Coast. And as soon as they invited us, I made sure that we were very clear to our group, meaning Oscar also, the group that we're advocating with, is, hey guys, they reached out. Let's put it out there. Hey, thank you, TKO, for the invitation, which came from them. They extended that olive branch. Thank you for the invitation. Let's sit down and see how we can advocate for what's best for boxing. That way, no one can say, well, we gave you an opportunity to say something, and the House or Senate or whatever political group can say, why didn't you guys sit down and have a conversation when you're so anti this new proposal that they put in, and they asked you to come out. You didn't come.
They'll know why, because that's not how they play politics either. They wouldn't have had a meeting like this unless they already had some kind of deal in place to support that legislation.
Remember, we're the B side of this.
Well, hold on. So, do you have senators or Congress people who are not only backing your position but willing to withhold their vote or vote no unless you get your stipulations met? Or do you have that kind of support in the House or the Senate?
I'll tell you from the senators that we've spoken to, the majority, if not all of them, are on that boat of making sure that this thing is done absolutely the way that it needs to be done for the benefit of the fighters, which means not having coercive contract, not having long-term contract, not having financial disclosure. Look, Raheem, I'm a promoter also, right? I know what the financial breakdown is of an event. If 100% revenue comes into an event, 80% of that, 85% of that is going to the talent. It's going to the fighters. The other 15-20% is going to go into operating costs. And if you're lucky as a promoter, you're going to make 10-15%. Where their model doesn't go that way. I'm not going to disclose, what their model is, but it's not that way. Maybe some can argue it's the exact opposite way.
Right. But what I'm asking, Amer, is do you have senators or Congress people who are looking to you to put some opposition together that will frame what is a deal breaker to get their vote? Do you have that kind of leverage with senators and Congress people to stop this from being passed if what you're asking for isn't amended?
Congress people know. Senators, absolutely. But this is what I'm saying to you, is you're telling us that, do you have this relationship with the senators to be able to put something through that can combat whatever this new resolution or this new bill that they're going to pass because their first one got denied because of our actions? And the answer is yes. But then you're saying, well, why don't you just let it die? How can I let it die? They're waiting on us to do something.
Well, I would say let it die for the reasons that we spoke about before.
There's no letting it die. You think these guys are going to let it die, Raheem? Let's not be naive about this.
But hold on. But you asked me a question. Why not just let it die? Because these things quite likely are out of your hands. And we are on the same side of this, in that we do want you to be successful.
That's why you guys
don't want this legislation passed. We don't think in any form it's good for boxing, really, that these TKO and Zuffa outlets should have to compete in the same market everybody else is competing in, as they are doing right now, and apparently are 2 years ahead of the plan that they had only 6 months in. So I don't know what everybody's complaining about. Why do we need to pass this? You guys are 2 years ahead of the game, apparently. You're doing more in boxing than every other promoter combined. So what do you need new legislation for? And if it's working, fighters are getting paid, and apparently Paramount must be super pleased of carrying to these press conferences I'm watching. So what is this for, right? So if all these things are happening and this legislation hasn't been passed, and that photo op, while I appreciate that you haven't given your support, in this modern age, like you talk about what a senator or a congressman would do, you don't get that photo op until you get some tacit agreement, and unless you have leverage to stop them from what they're doing. Seeing Nico sitting ringside, seeing you guys sitting there at NitCon, and what looks like the beer summit, looks like you guys are just ironing out the last details to his next fight being on Zuffa.
I would respectfully disagree with you. Maybe our tactics are different and the approach is different. One, I'm a Muslim and I don't drink, so I don't appreciate a beer summit analogy. But secondly, in all seriousness, Raheem, no, that's the intentions that we have, is to actually come up to a resolution that makes sense. We're not playing a political game. We're not playing use this for this and tit for tat. We're not doing that. We're trying to actually come up with a real resolution. So if you want to sit down, if the opposition, I don't want to call it the enemy, my opposition wants to sit down and have a conversation about how we can better it, yeah, of course I'm going to do it. And what I'm not going to do is get sabotaged by maybe a photographer taking a picture and say, oh, by the way, these guys met. No, I'm going to get ahead of it, and I'm going to control the narrative and say openly, this is what's happening. So if whoever likes it, great. And whoever doesn't like it, I could give a damn. But what we're doing is we know where our intentions are and where we're headed and what we're supposed to be doing for the betterment of the sport and for the fighters. Whoever likes it, great. And whoever doesn't, great.
Okay, I think we're monopolizing the conversation. So, Nico, what are the changes that you'd like to be made, and what are the conversations being had around those changes? Where are we with this negotiation, and what exactly are you negotiating for?
Well, first, I want to say, I mean, of course, I agree with Amer. I understand by the optics and by the public opinion how it looks. A photo with me and Amer with Nick Khan. I understand how it looks, but I don't believe, after, however many months it's been of literally every single day having to talk to senators, me personally having to go to the gym 2-3 times a day, and in between that finding time to get on these calls. No, like Amer mentioned, however many months it's taken away from my career, and me battling, going to the gym 2-3 times a day and still finding time to make these senator calls every other day, or however many times a week we have to do this. It's monotonous to say the least. So I don't believe going back and forth, me explaining my changes, them explaining to them their changes. I felt when Nick Khan and TKO reached out to Amer and was like, "Hey, let's sit down and talk." I felt that would be the quickest way to a solution. So that was just my opinion, and I felt, even though it was our opposition and it felt weird and awkward meeting with the guy that I was just opposing in DC against, it felt weird, but I do feel that changes will now be expedited because we directly spoke to the source and told him what we feel needs to be changed. And we actually had that conversation, cut out the middleman, cut out all the senators and all that. I felt we did a lot and cut out a lot of my time that's just being, wasted not fighting by speaking to him directly.
What are those changes? What are the things that you discussed?
Number one is the financial transparencies. That's huge for me. That's one of the biggest argument points that we had against the UFC when I was in DC. When I was in DC talking about the antitrust lawsuit, it's always the financial disclosures. So that's one. The contract length that goes on to, coercive contracts, being forced to sign a 5-year contract for a lot of people. That's the majority of your boxing career. So I think I'm very confident that is going to be on our side with the contract length, and just honestly the fighter rights, the rights that we have in the current Ali Act in general, I want to maintain as much as possible. And we have, there's a list of stuff that we want to get changed.
Now, I know how negotiations work, and I know you guys are negotiating in good faith. So these questions, while they may be challenging, may be easy, they're meant for clarity, not for confrontation.
Like I told you in the beginning,
the list that you're talking about, is that something that could be made public so that you could rally behind, or public support could rally behind this agenda and know what we're fighting for?
I'm not sure. That's more of an Amer question. I don't know how the senators are about. I that's not something for me to ask, or that's not something that I can answer. I wouldn't be able to. I would have to check with everyone before I disclose that.
Amer?
I just have a question too for Nico and Amer. You could jump in.
Hold on, Sean. Could Amer answer that question? Then I'll step
Yep.
out and let you jump in.
Yeah, I think the changes that we're trying to make there's 15 points that we'd like to get changed on them. I'll give you the high level ones because they're the most important ones, which is contract length, transparency for the finances. I disclosed the 80-20 kind of rule. I'd like to see a financial transparency in that to make sure that the talent also sees what's coming in and what they're getting. I'd like to see sponsorship. If you saw yesterday, Richardson Hitchens fought in his trunks. His opponent did not. He fought in a Zuffa uniform. And, a monetary compensation if you do opt to fight in their uniform as opposed to that. We want to see transparency in the rankings. We want to see full UBO disclosures of what, how this thing operates. I think those are the high level components that we're shooting for. And then there's other ones about, free agency, contractual obligations, a firewall, an actual clear firewall between the promoter, the UBO, and the manager. That there's, they can't be coercive, in which, it's a guy that works for the UBO or has connections to the UBO also representing the manager. Things like that to protect the fighter. Look, Nico said it. There are some great things that they're doing, which is as soon as a contract signed, health insurance comes into play. Great. That's great. But let's not put lipstick on a pig and say, oh, by the way, this is the way that you should do it. No, there are a lot of things that need to get changed. And we're pushing back on those things. And the fact that they're open to getting those suggestions because of our pushback and our resistance should also insinuate where we are going. Raheem, I'm not going to justify every single meeting that we have and every single thing that we do, because maybe people from a shorter kind of a site can't see that. I know what we're trying to do. And what we're trying to do is the right thing in my mind. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm going to do it that way. And if anybody else wants to do it their way, by all means. Right now, we're the only ones at this dance. And I said it to you before. We are the B-side in this fight. When we were in that Senate hearing, one of the senators asked Nick Khan, while we're talking about TKO versus boxing? And when do you think you can bring a WWE event to Cleveland?
Yes. Well,
What do you think
I
we're up
do.
against? So now you want me to play by the rules that are norm? No, I'm not going to. And anybody that doesn't like it, fuck it. Sorry, can we swear on your show?
Yes,
Yes.
of course you can. But I too am Muslim, Amir, and I don't appreciate the introduction of swine into the conversation, even with lipstick on it. So, Sean, you can jump in now while I have my 0 beer.
Oh
I,
my
I even
God.
eat turkey bacon to stay healthy, but makes you feel better. No, but hey, and to give you guys your due, perfect is the enemy of good, right? So you know what I mean by that, guys. So even if, but a question I would have for Nico and then Amir, obviously as well, and a big hang up about this, because clearly, the UBO is the make or break for them. That they're willing to bend on other areas, but it's the UBO, and that would be one thing. But when it's backed by someone like Ari Emanuel, who has his fingerprints all over ESPN, which would have once been a competitor for them in the boxing space, no longer is. I know Top Rank has feelings. They have executives there that feel like maybe or maybe not his influence and TKO's influence there had something to do with them maybe not getting back on a competitor's network like ESPN. They did themselves no favors late in their tenure. That's a separate, separate discussion. And then again, having Paramount behind them, and if you get this UBO and eventually Ari, who helped back that Paramount Skydance original merger and is in with the Ellisons trying to back the Paramount Warner's merger, then another competitor is hamstrung in TNT DAZN, and they have a lot of the same kind of financial backing anyways, with Turkey and the Saudis owning a stake in that. Leonard Blavatnik has a good enough relationship with Ari Emanuel to have had Canelo Kovalev staggered so UFC could get the primetime slot once upon a time in 2019. So, but anyways, the question is, I just want to mention all this for the audience. Not everybody's hip to this stuff or cares to be hip to it. If it were up to you, though, would it? And again, there's things like the WBC having 3 champions, interim champions. They don't mandate that they fight each other. There's sanctioning bodies with multiple belts. There's plenty of things that have needed addressing in boxing for a while. But I think when it's the actors behind this legislature, everything else I said bears the repeating and everything. But if it were up to you, Nico, would it just be they would leave it alone? Are you in a situation now where you're having to think on your feet and make amendments because you believe if you stand aside, like Amir said, it's going to get passed one way or the other, which I think, is up for debate. I think Amir made a very strong argument as to why it's not up for debate, to think it'll simply die on a vine. But if it were up to you, would you just leave the Ali Act as it is? Are you just kind of dealing with the devil, so to speak, and trying to make the best of a bad situation? Or do you believe you do want to see this thing passed with the amendments? Or in a perfect world, would it have just been left alone all along and TKO can continue in their business, which, like Dana said, they feel they're already 2 years ahead of schedule, already signing the best American fighter, pound for pound, Shakur. How would you see it?
Well, now I wasn't as hip into the laws of boxing, even into the Ali Act, as I am now, having been this deep into the laws behind boxing now. Before I would have answered that question, say let's leave the Ali Act as it is. But the truth is, it's been decades now since the Ali Act has passed, and even though the Ali Act is great and amazing, there's always updated laws that could help it even more, that could help us fighters even more. For example, the health laws that they're adding into the Revival Act. That's something that would be great. That's something that would be amazing to add. You can always update the act to more benefit fighters in our current time. So I mean, I would still, if it, in a perfect world, I would add all the additional benefits that would be best for us fighters in the current Ali Act.
Can I? one of the things that was a bit annoying at the outset of this becoming a public conversation is that they named it the Ali Revival Act.
Of
And the
course.
reality
What else are they
is,
gonna name it?
well, hold on. The reality is that it isn't actually the Ali Act at all. It's a separate legislation that's allowing you
yeah.
to do something isolated from the Ali
Exactly.
Act, and it doesn't change the Ali Act at all. So, to improve the Ali Act, which I think all of people in boxing would agree can use some strengthening, can use some improvement, can use some updates after as long as it's been on the books. No matter what they do with this UBO, it's not going to change, improve, or weaken the Ali Act. It's just going to give them an out. So is there a roadmap to where, okay, this UBO passes and that is baked in the cake, but then we can also amend the Ali Act, which feels like a whole nother legislative path?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that would work, but I'm working with the situation we're in because I'd love to think about in a perfect world only updating the Ali Act and then keeping that the way it is, but that's not the world we live in. And I'm absolutely certain. I could bet you guys now, if me and Amer stopped making these calls today, in a month and a half, you would see the Revival Act getting stronger and stronger and stronger and eventually just passing. Without our resistance, it would just be passed through. So right now we're just working, trying to make the best of a situation that we didn't like at the start. And we're trying to just add what's best for boxing with what we have.
I did mean to cut you off, Amir, but I'm going to ask you to jump in with whatever you were going to say. And also, just as a heads up, I can hear the messages sending and the pinging, so you got to put that on mute because it's popping up on the show.
Shelly Finkel's blowing me up. Why are you? Okay, let me tell you.
So, but yeah, okay. As a last one for me.
Yeah, but Amir, but let Amir answer this one. So,
yeah, go ahead. I didn't know.
Being that this kind of the name of this is the Revival Act, and that's total bullshit. It's not going to have anything to do with the Ali Act. I'm assuming to change the Ali Act is a whole different legislative path. So no matter what happens with this UBO, this is only going to apply to people in the UBO. So maybe with your senators or Congress people, I mean, I know that is a huge ask, but is there a possibility that part of your stipulation would be, okay, here's how we make the UBO legislations, which is what it should be called, better, but alongside, if you pass this and give these people an out, well, then on the other side of that, as a concession, strengthen the Ali Act, make it better so that the fighters who are fighting under it are more protected and have more resources when those laws aren't adhered to.
Excellent question. That's the first good question you've asked in the last hour, Raheem. Okay?
Oh, I'm sorry. You probably missed it while you were texting. I've got some good ones in there.
You see, very quick.
Sorry, you got a text.
Yeah. Okay. So, one, if you want to put lipstick on a cow, what you do is, you're welcome, is call it the Muhammad Ali Revival Act. What else are they going to call it, right? If you call it the UBO thing, it'll get killed from the onset. That's the lipstick on it, right? Let me play devil's advocate. Let me go to the other side of this, okay? Fighters will now have a choice. They will have a choice to jump into a UBO or to stay with the traditional boxing side, which we're all accustomed to and we're all used to. But to go back to your point, does the old Ali Act need revisions? Of course it does. This should be, by the way, an annual revisit of the bill. Do I believe in interim champions, super champions, regular champions? No, of course not. Every organization should have one champion, with rules on if that champion's not available, what happens to his title? What if he gets injured? Does he vacate the title, or is there an interim a title that comes in? You know, those are to be discussed, but those should be revisited by qualified people to be able to do that yearly. Secondly, one of the simulations to where the Ali Revival Act goes was we need to have one champion per division. There will be a Zuffa champion per division. There's two problems with that. Number one, and by the way, they insinuated that, you know, the example was Marvelous Marvin Hagler, when he reigned for 6 years as the champion? Well, Hagler was the undisputed champion, holding at that time the 3-belt era. He was undisputed champion. But if you're going to also say there should be one champion, just like the NFL also has an AFC East champion, an AFC West champion, an NFC East champion. And then the winner of all of those titles comes together, which we call undisputed, and it becomes the Super Bowl champion. Good? But the problem on the other side of it is you're not recognizing one champion because there's also the ring champion. In your organization, you're recognizing the Zuffa title and the ring title, both of which have independent rankings. And that's why we're asking for a transparent ranking system. Let's see what your rankings really fall on. Is it biased? Is it, however you want to run it? But I think as this thing grows, I think that they're starting to figure out that boxing, you can't come into boxing the way that you did MMA, right? You created MMA. People call people a UFC fighter, right? They don't call him a Queensberry fighter or a Golden Boy fighter. They call him a boxer. But because they started MMA, they're able to brand that sport and be able to cultivate it kind of the way that they wanted to do it. You can't come into boxing and just reset all of the rules that's been going on from the inception of boxing. It's already an embedded sport. It has a culture. It's the way that we like it to be. Could it be fixed? Of course it could. Could the sanctioning bodies be limited in forcing them to say you get one champion per division and that's it? Sure. Should that happen? Sure. Should there be health benefits that the promoter pays once a contract is signed? Yes, because they're a contracted fighter now. They're contracted under your organization to fight at X date. It shouldn't just be up to the date. So I agree with all of that stuff. But to go back, the fighters now have an option. Either you take this course of a UBO, which we are now defending, and try to make sure that it's the best case scenario if a fighter, who the majority of them are not going to be educated on this scenario, or the landscape, or go to the traditional boxing side. So boxing is now going to be split. Unfortunately, the best here, if this UBO passes, because remember, Zuffa right now is just a promoter, like Sean said. If this thing passes, I think it'll be very difficult to have this side fight this side. I just don't think that happens. And now you've divided the sport as opposed to uniting it, which was my initial plan when we were running boxing. But that's a different story, right?
Yeah, and to your final point, I think, isn't that in the UBO legislation that their fighters can't fight outside the UBO once they're signed in, and that they won't, in fact, fight cross-promote? They can't represent or win sanctioning body titles. Like, this is a massive division. This is exactly what they claimed they were going to do from the very outset. Now they're doing the polar opposite, thank God. And it seems to be working. I mean, again, Sean and I are both, we had a conversation privately, astounded by how much progress TKO has made and how Zuffa's 2 years ahead of their program already, and what we can't wait to see what will happen on Jan 1st and how we can judge them at that point. I don't know why they'd want to rock the boat. It's going so smoothly. I mean, these shows are so tremendous. It seems like the UBO might upset the apple cart. They've signed all the biggest fighters. They've got the best shows. They're doing more shows than everybody else, and they're ahead of schedule. So maybe the UBO could be a potential poison pill to their agenda. Maybe they could consider just not doing it since Zuffa's going so well as is.
How do you want me to answer that?
That's not a question. That was my.
I mean,
that was my statement. Yeah,
Sean, you got to know something else that you can just piggyback on top of that.
Yeah, and it's just, again, when they pitch, when they do, like, Black Sheep in 91, right? New York stand up, all right? And by the way, Berlanga, it was a good fight last night, all right? I'm not saying everything they're producing is bad. Enjoyed the card last night. Hitchens, solid performance. Berlanga, exciting fight. And to be fair to them, it's not technically the Ali revival. It's the American Boxing Revival. Muhammad Ali American Boxing Revival Act. Again, attaching Muhammad Ali's name is it a non sequitur, Raheem? Is that the right turn of phrase for it? It's not.
I think the term I used was bullshit.
There you go. It's bullshit still. Correct. But technically it's the American Boxing Revival Act, and I understand why they pitch it that part as such. I understand that part of the pitch. The problem with saying you could deal with this or you could deal with that is if they're the captain of their ship is a guy who has so much sway throughout all the media and is backing a merger that could eventually hamstring all other competitors, then it's not really a competitive free market. And that's where antitrust, anti-competitive practices come into play. And that's why they're running into problems trying to do both the merger and this Ali Act. And then I just got one more question for Nico, but Amer, go ahead, and then I'll finish out with my last question of the day. And thanks, guys, for the extended time.
No, of course, I'm always fancied by Raheem and his questions. Raheem, let me ask you this. You're obviously against this UBO.
Listen, what I just said, while I did a bit tongue-in-cheek, I actually believe. Not that they're doing such a great job that they're 2 years ahead. However, I'll take Dana White at his word. I don't know what the plan was. I don't think what Zuffa is doing right now is bad. I like what they're doing in boxing right now. I like that they're giving fighters another option, which is Zuffa. I like that fighters are getting paid well. I even like the fact that you can fight under their model on a big platform like Paramount and get mainstream media attention, and they can run that side of their promotion in a way that, if we're honest, none of these boxing promoters and no platform, including DAZN, can provide that kind of visibility to boxers. They certainly haven't. So I appreciate that. I do think that, I'm not overwhelmed and stunned by the shows they put on so far, but I expect them to continuously get better as they get more fighters. I think the production quality I like. I have some issues with the commentary, but the production's great. And yeah, I think Zuffa is a great third option, the way I look at it, for fighters to take as is. So what I'm saying is maybe this UBO stuff is not necessary. And am I as passionate about stopping it as Sean is, or as Nico or you are? Probably not. I'm not. That's not like my flagship issue, but I like things the way they are. And if we're given to me the power, I would just improve the Ali Act and make it have more teeth, more provisions, and then I could get on board with there being a UBO alongside it. But I think what the UBO could present is a division in boxing that will create a problem that none of us want, and that's what I'm against.
No, it absolutely will. But you got to remember, Zuffa's not in this thing to be a promoter. They're in this thing to run UFC 2.0 called Zuffa, which is their own UBO. So so the fact that they're where they are now, and we were talking about this the other day, is maybe they should have waited until the bill got passed before they launched, so everything could be under one umbrella, and it could be the same set of rules where it was no sanctioning bodies, and then it was we'll work with some, and now it's on a case-to-case basis where it just keeps changing because nothing is set yet. And maybe what they were anticipating was this to pass as smooth as it did in the House, in the Senate, which it did not. So I appreciate also them coming into boxing and giving another opportunity. But yes, if a UBO comes in, and if these contracts are truly exclusive, which, if I was running a UBO, I'd want them to be exclusive, then it will cause a division in boxing. And it will be a choice for the fighters. And at that point, you say to yourself, okay, if they go into the UBO, what protections have we put in for them? And if they go into traditional boxing, that can we continue to make changes to the Muhammad Ali Act? That's really the umbrella that encompasses both of these pathways. But Raheem, I think it would be very naive to think that this thing is just going to die if we just leave it alone and not poke at it and not address it. And us being in the trenches every single day, it's so, I don't want to say infuriating, because I can't blame people that don't know, but from the outside, say, hey man, he sold out, he went on Zuffa. What have we been doing every single day? And there's nothing more that he's sacrificing than his own career, which is finances. The most infuriating thing, the most upsetting thing to Nico is when people say, are you still fighting? And I know that gets under his skin. And when we're out, a lot of people ask that question. And he's like, bro, I'm sitting here in my mid-20s not fighting. So anyway, I don't want to make this all about that. This is about...
Why is he not fighting?
Why are we not getting media interviews?
To be fair, there was a number of channels that at the Jarrell Miller Linier Pero fight that you guys appeared at, I think Fight Hub, Michelle Phelps, Fight Hype, myself. You guys did get media interviews, and those are some of those are the biggest channels in boxing media.
This is by the way, which is called scratching the surface and digging a little bit deeper. How many of those got published?
I know Fight Hype did, because I used to work at Fight Hype, and I do know Fight Hype published it.
So
I mean, I don't want to. I understand, but I do need to at least hit you with a follow up. Is there an explanation as to why? I mean, we know he's not going to be signed to Zuffa anytime soon. It doesn't look like it. So, what is stopping Nico Ali Walsh from? I mean, you can have this fight and fight in the ring, right? Like, what's the problem?
And by the way, no, and now the promoters, after we put it out there, we're saying, listen, we're fighting really to keep your model of business open. Now, mind you, we're not fighting for you. We're fighting for Nico and what he believes in. And he's brought us into the fight with him, which I believe in. I believe in everything that when he wants to believe in something, then I'm going to believe in it. And I'm going to believe in my guy. And I think he's on the right track and he's on the right path. So it's not like I'm going down this thing deaf, dumb, and blind. You know, I've opened my eyes to this thing and done a little bit of research on it. But the promoters in the beginning, you know, when the enemy of your financer needs a favor from you, what do you do?
Supposed to reach out to
the enemy of your financer is okay.
Yeah. Supposed to help him out.
Supposed to help him out.
Yeah.
Supposed to help him out because he's saving your business and he's fighting for you. But I don't want to risk my reputation and my promotional outfit and my, you know.
Well, if they're all under the grasp of the guy who owns 60% of the enemy, right? Because Golden Boy and Matchroom and Top Rank and now even PBC going under the DAZN umbrella, if you're all in the sphere of influence of the biggest financier of them all, maybe you don't want to piss them off. You know, and me trying to read in between the lines of what you're saying.
If the biggest person advocating against your financer is speaking outright, do you touch him? No, the answer is I absolutely stay clear of him and make sure that I don't give him an opportunity. And if there was an opportunity, I just wouldn't do it. Unfortunately, you know, when I came to Las Vegas, Mike told me, you're coming into the capital of boxing, and two things survive out here in the desert: snakes and chameleons.
I'm going to steal that line. I like that one. I won't steal it. I'll attribute it. But what I'm hearing, and I'm reading between the lines, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but it sounds like not only are you not engendering support by or from the more powerful promoters in the business or even networks that are not Paramount, but also that you're experiencing some level of blackballing, as Nico is a fighter first, a boxer first, and clearly a fighter in spirit as he's looking to fight this legislation and do what he feels is right for the sport. And not only is nobody backing you publicly with your fight against this UBO thing, which if you ask Oscar, if you ask most people that are promoters or in the business, they don't want it. They see that as the enemy to their business.
Who funds the promotions?
Well, I can't. Well, let me. I'm going to
answer you.
But I can't hear you when I'm saying the thing, is I really don't hear you. So what I'm asking is, are the promoters not only not backing you in the fight, which they could do with financial backing, they could do with putting your comments forward and bringing you on a broadcast, not to sit ringside at Zuffa, but to be a part of the broadcast that they're having and air your perspective and issues about what will change the sport of boxing on whole. I'm not seeing any network or promoter doing that. But on top of that, you're approaching promoters for fights, and they're like, "Nah, we don't want to be in the Nico Ali Walsh business."
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, Raheem, who funds the promoter?
I mean, don't ask me. I'm asking you. Like, I'm asking you if that's the landscape that you're looking at.
You know the answer. Who funds the promoter?
It would be the networks, and then also Turkey Al-Sheikh is the big financer in the game right now.
Let's stop at number one. And I don't want to put anything on Turkey because that's a separate conversation. And you know, Raheem, what my position on this is, and I've bitten my tongue for the past 3 years on this. Okay? Who funds the promoter? And you're right. The
The
network.
network.
I'll
Okay.
leave the rest to.
But the promoters have their own money. Every promoter, you know what I'm saying? The promoter can function
And
independently of the network.
without
If
a
they want to
network,
support
can
something.
the promoter survive?
What's that?
Without a network, can the promoter survive?
No, okay, okay, but I don't know
You're
why
the
you're
boss.
asking me
The
questions. What I'm
network is
saying
the boss,
is,
Raheem.
are
Don't get
you
it.
saying that the networks are blackballing Nico or putting pressure on
I'm
the
not saying
promoters to
anything.
not
I'm telling
voice
you what I see.
opposition?
I'm not saying anything. I'm telling you what I'm feeling and what I'm witnessing and having conversations with everybody. And the reality is the reality, and you can fill in the equation. I'll tell you what the equals on the other side of the equation is. The equals is Nico sitting on the sidelines. The what plus what equals that, you can deduce that on your own.
Fair enough. Okay.
Well, last one for me, guys, and there's speculation now about this, Nico. What are the chances you become a Zuffa fighter? Could you see yourself fighting under Zuffa in the future now?
In what future?
Let's say you help amend these acts. You think you like what you've done with it. Is it any future? Is there any possibility that you eventually sign with Zuffa?
I don't see it. With I mean, again, I'm trying to be as positive as possible with it, with the amendments that that we're trying to put in place, because the amendments that we're trying to put in place are not small. They would make a difference, and they would help boxing. They would give more protections to boxers. But I don't see it under what they're trying to propose right now. The way the Revival Act was initially trying to be pushed, if that's Zuffa, of course not.
There would have to be significant changes, I think, to be able to have that conversation. But look, do you totally rule anything out, Sean? No, you never
Say never, say never.
Never say never. There's things that have happened that I was absolutely, I don't want to say appalled by, but I was shocked by, that have happened because of the power of money. And when I sat with powers that be and I said, you can't do this and you can't do this, and they stopped me and they said, believe me, they'll all come for the money. And you know what? They were absolutely right. So,
Nico,
I'll
do
say this,
you
never say never, but the way that things are, that's Nico's call. I can't see it happening.
Nico, do you feel like you're being blackballed or prevented
Yeah.
from getting opportunities and platform because of this stance?
Yeah, and I know I have to be politically correct with what I say, but the answer, yes. I mean, the most simple way to put it is, I was getting fights, I was active, and then I, went to DC and haven't fought since. And everyone saw that DC hearing. Everyone in boxing saw that.
That's
Yeah.
objectively factual.
Amer warned me about this before I took my stance. I just didn't think, I didn't think it would happen.
Do you regret any of this? Do you think it's been worth it?
If I could go back and do this all again, I would still have to do this again, because it's what I believe in. And if I didn't take a stand, the Revival Act would be passed. Zuffa would be a UBO, and I don't know. I mean, boxing would be a totally different landscape right now.
Thanks for
Sean,
your
you
time.
want to close this out?
Yeah, just thanks for your time, fellas. Best of luck,
Of course.
Nico. Looking forward to seeing you back in the ring sooner than later. And Amer too. Thanks for the time, guys. And
Thank you.
have a
Before
good rest of the
everybody
journey
goes-
on this. We'll be in touch.
Before
Thank you,
anybody
guys.
goes, I want to thank you, Amer, for stopping by here first. Most people don't do that, and we appreciate that you gave us this opportunity to have this conversation. Nico, I appreciate you standing up for what you believe in and fighting
you.
for it and sacrificing for it some of the prime years of your boxing career, and being willing to do it again if you had a chance to do it all over. That, I believe, is in the tradition of your family and your father, and it is commendable, whether people agree with you or not. That's the kind of mettle that a real warrior has. So
Thank you.
you for
Thank you, Sean. And I
that
commend
effort.
you guys also on your position. Sean, I love your objectivity. and I did not take any offense to your tweet or your post.
Neither did I.
Journalist, and you should be asking, like I told you in the beginning, ask anything that you want, because I think that's the only way journalism should be. Raheem, I somewhat like you, and that's why I wanted you on this call also.